DMs, do you just drop monsters in front of your players as roadblocks or just because you have to have one combat encounter per session? Or do you play the monsters smartly? Let's talk about it. Playing your monsters smartly is probably a smart thing to do. Monsters in the 5th edition Monster Manual have a stat block, including ability scores, which they didn't used to have in older editions. And of course, one of those ability scores is intelligence. So are you playing your monsters according to their level of intelligence? Maybe you should be if you're not. Depends upon the level of complexity you want to put in your game. Playing a monster smartly means looking at their intelligence, looking at, does this monster have some sort of society like goblins and kobolds do? Or are they solitary creatures? Now, it's very easy for DMs to play monsters like Mind Flayers and Dragons and Strahd as intelligent monsters, able to think, but a lot of monsters have a high enough intelligence score that you could reasonably say that they can think and reason and plan for a combat encounter, just like the PCs can plan for a combat encounter. Take goblins in the 5th edition, for example. Goblins have an intelligence of 10, and part of their description says that they have lairs with alarms and things set up in case anybody intrudes. But why not take it a step further? These goblins are just trying to live their best lives, and maybe they've got a plan for when bloodthirsty player characters come to invade their home. Not only will they have alarms set up, but maybe they've got traps, bottlenecks, just defenses where they can take cover or take advantage of line of sight. Maybe in addition to regular goblins and the goblin boss, maybe you've got some shamans in there, some goblins who have taken a level or two of druid or sorcerer. Maybe there's some goblins in there that have taken a level or two of fighter. Tougher ones that are in charge. They're smart enough to be able to separate into squads and plan and be able to defend their homes beyond what it says in the Monster Manual. It's up to you as the DM whether you want to take it that far or not. But here's another thing to consider. Are your monsters going to be smart enough to run away if things start going south for them? Maybe they should, but there really aren't any rules in 5th edition for that. I mean, goblins, you just keep using goblins as an example, goblins are able to disengage and hide as a bonus action on every one of their turns. Okay, but are you taking advantage of that? In earlier editions of D&D, there was a rule set in place that took care of this very question: monster reactions and monster morale. Monster reactions happened at the beginning of every combat, where you would roll to see how a monster would react when they first saw a party of player characters. As you can see here, you would roll 2d6, and this little table would tell you how the monster is going to react. Now, of course, unless the monster description says, don't do this, this is something you should have done. And of course, there are things where, waiting a turn, the speaker's charisma could come into play or whatever. So it goes from immediate attack on a roll of 2 to immediately friendly on a roll of 12. Maybe your combat encounter is not going to even happen depending upon how that roll came out. Another thing that the old rules had was morale. Monster morale determined whether monsters were going to hang around during combat or not. So monsters in the early editions of the game had a morale score from 2 to 12, and you would roll a 2d6 if you were checking the monster's morale. If you rolled greater than their morale, the creatures will try to stop to fight or run away. If you rolled less than or equal to, the creatures would continue to fight. A morale check was never made if the creature's morale was 2 or 12, because a 2 meant that the creature's never going to fight, and a 12 meant the creature will always fight. You didn't have to check. When did you check morale? Well, certain things had to happen. One of the things was when the creature is first hit, taking 1 or more hit points of damage, you would check morale. When the creature is reduced to 1/4 of its starting hit points, you would check its morale. Or if you had a group of creatures, a morale check was made for the entire group when the first death on either side occurred. That includes characters. Or when half of the monsters are not free to act, whether they're killed, magically asleep, controlled, etc., etc. That would help you determine whether monsters were going to stick around or run away. And it was something you were supposed to do with every monster. And it was just hardwired right into the rules of the earlier editions. Why they got rid of it, I don't know. Maybe combat was getting too complicated, too many things to take care of. But it's something to consider for your own games. Are monsters always going to stick around and fight to the death? Maybe not. Again, let's think about goblins for a second. Goblins are not all fighters. There are going to be men and women goblins. There are going to be children goblins, They have an intelligence of 10. That is an average intelligence. So maybe that goblin you're fighting has got a wife and a kid back home, and he don't want to die. He wants to go back to them. Sure, they are greedy, bark-hearted little buggers, but they probably do care about their own offspring somewhat. Make combat interesting. Put that other level in there of playing your creatures smart, allowing them to plan and come up with ways to defeat invaders. Allow them to get scared and run away. It gives a higher level of realism to your combat instead of just hacking and slashing the group of goblins you find in the dungeon. And give some of those creatures, like if you've just, got generic goblins, give some of them a couple of levels of character classes. Call them a shaman, maybe some of them are good using bows and arrows or throwing javelins. Get creative. Make combat interesting, fun, and unexpected for players who have been playing a long time. Because no matter what, even though we try not to do it, we do metagame. When we walk in and see a group of goblins, we know what to expect. Give them something not to expect. Have those goblins take advantage of line of sight defenses that they've set up. The goblin shaman who's slinging spells. Make it more fun, make it more interesting, and have a better time playing. Have a great day, everyone.